Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. So, Rams beat the Jets 19-9. Another strange, ugly first half for Stafford and McVay, which, your first half is your scripted half, a really rough first half, but they had a great fourth quarter. The Jets had a fourth quarter lead and just evaporated. The Rams are now 7-4 in one-score games, and the Jets are 3-7 in one-score games. So the Jets have been in games and they can't make plays late, and that was typical today. It was penalties. It's interesting. They got Tyler Higbee, their top tight end back, so that's another weapon. So the Rams, for the first time all year, are completely healthy on offense. They have all their starters back. This was the first game. But it's funny. They're healthy and they're hot. It was the third straight game with no sacks allowed. So I think we would both agree that when Stafford's upright and not pressured, he's a top 4 quarterback in the league. I mean, he is sensational. But when I watch them, and then I watch, it's funny, when you watch the Rams win, what I see is coaching excellence. Like, they just don't make a lot of mistakes. Now, Kyron Williams got a unsportsmanlike penalty today that killed a drive, and they settled for a field goal, but it wasn't punitive. It didn't cause a loss. But I watch the Rams and I'm like, they're 5 players away. I think they're good enough to narrowly win a playoff game, but Minnesota's so good. Detroit and Philly have much better rosters. I think Green Bay is just getting better, like on a weekly basis. Can the Rams win a playoff game? Because they're going to win their division.
Well, more than likely, they're going to be the 3 seed, and Green Bay is going to be the 6. That's a pretty tough first round matchup.
I would take Green Bay.
And Green Bay is pretty well suited to play indoors and score a lot of points, right? I mean, that's some serious team speed. What did they do last year when they played indoors against the Cowboys? They lit up that scoreboard. So if Love's on, that's a tough draw for the Rams back-to-back years, getting the Lions and the Packers more than likely, because I don't think McVay gets enough credit for this, right? We talk a lot about him being this great young schematic
Yeah.
guy with Kyle. And, I mean, Kyle's taking a hit this year, but, Andy way back in the day when he first got hired in Philly. Last year, they were 3-6 and went 7-1. I think their one loss was like to the Giants. This year they were 1-4. Now, granted, that was a lot of injuries, but I don't give a shit if you have a lot of. You're 1-4. I mean, that's a pretty deep hole to dig out of. And now they're more than likely going to win 11 games, right? They got Arizona coming up, who's just not very good, and Seattle might just be done
Yeah.
by that point in time, and that game might not even matter. Uh, is this guy kind of like the younger version of Tomlin in terms of leadership and holding guys together? And I think we got very lucky because clearly he came close. I don't blame him. I mean, someone starts throwing 15, $18 million in front of you to go call one game a week on
Yeah.
Thursday night, the Amazon thing. And he turned that down and he stayed. And we've really seen him rise to the occasion these last couple of years. Because, like you said, I like the Jets. I had money on the Jets today just because that West Coast team, they had just had a huge win that put them in position, even like they controlled their own destiny. You're coming 5 hours, morning kickoff in New York. New York, the Jets have actually been playing better. I expected that game to be weird, and it was for a long time, but ultimately the cream rose and they separated, like you said, in the fourth quarter. But I think McVay is like a young Tomlin to just the adversity, being able to just handle different guys. Now he's proven that he can handle sweet vets, Hall of Fame guys like Stafford or Aaron Donald, but all these young guys. He made, I think it was hard for him to have his best friend become the defensive coordinator. They've been freaking awesome on defense. I mean, this young guy, I text around the league and everything I hear, the violence from Verse and Fisk, the
Oh,
two
yeah.
Florida State guys, are just people love those two guys
Listen,
around the league. Just a violent,
I
violent
mean, they
group.
need a number 1 corner. They may take a corner in the first round, and they need an offensive tackle and a boundary receiver. But if they get a number 1 corner, dude, that means they got 2 more years of paying nobody on this defense. This is the youngest. You know how we've been saying the Packers is the best young offense in the NFL? The Rams have the cheapest, most economical, best young defense that needs a lockdown corner. But I don't know if they can win a playoff game because I think the AFC is better at the top. I think the NFC is deeper. In fact, let me throw this out to you. The playoff picture today, I think this is right. Baltimore would open at Houston, Denver at Pittsburgh. Would it be Minnesota or Green Bay at the Rams?
Let me bring up the playoffs. I think it's Houston. It's yeah, technically Pittsburgh has the 3 seed, so it would be Houston, Baltimore. It'd be Pittsburgh Chargers and Broncos Bills, and the NFC would be Rams Packers, Minnesota Bucks, Eagles Washington, which would be a tough game for the Eagles.
It would be. Um, yeah, when I look at, I saw they said today that Aaron Rodgers would be willing, the announcers, to take a pay cut to stay. And I think Vrabel's the best candidate for the Jets or the Bears. I think if I was the Jets, I'd love to draft a quarterback, but they're in a tough spot because maybe Riley Leonard's in the fourth round. But I've had two executives tell me that they think every quarterback taken this year is better than Shedeur Sanders. Everyone. And after you watch Penix today, I don't think there's any question. Jaden, I mean, so it's like Green Bay, the Jets they're in a weird spot. Like there's now Aaron's playing pretty well now, and he and Devontae are cooking. Um, yeah, I think you don't have a choice. I think he's moving better. I think you're stuck with Aaron.
Yeah, I didn't hear what your thoughts were on the article that came out, but the Jets, they're such an easy target right now that any story you read is just 100% believable. There's nothing crazy enough that can come out. I do think people would be stunned how many of these owners, now some of these owners are older, so their children, like Jonathan Kraft, in their 50s, or Stephen Jones, but those that have younger children, who can be the most honest with a billionaire? Their
Yeah.
kids. I was watching Charlie Woods play with Tiger Woods today. Charlie can say things to Tiger that no one else can because everyone else that their owner talks to is on their payroll. So I think, the story about the Madden rating, it sounds really like, whoa, provocative and crazy. I think these owners get told crazy things by their children
Yeah.
all the time. And that goes for Jonathan Kraft to Robert Kraft and Stephen Jones to Jerry. It might not be Madden ratings, but these people have ideas that are unfiltered. And I think the Jets aren't that much different than the majority of these teams with just these owners that are just kind of living in, because forever as an NFL owner, when I was a kid, when the 49ers were playing at Candlestick, the DeBartolos had family money, but it's not like the 49ers, the league wasn't making as much. They were very dependent. These guys have monopoly
Yeah.
money now. Even the poor owners are
Yeah.
billionaires. So winning and losing, you used to have to win to generate money. Well, now, even if you lose, you're still getting the $500 million and your team's going to still make some
That's
other
right.
money in, extra revenue streams. So you don't have to worry about winning to make money. So you're like, that's my theory on why some of these owners no longer, in the 80s, 90s, 70s, you'd hire whatever coach you thought would make sure or give you the best chance to win, even if he was a complete asshole. Now it's like, we're making money no matter what. I'd rather have a guy that, might listen. So I wonder, like, everyone was turned off by Belichick because of that. And, Vrabel, and I don't blame Vrabel. Like, listen, I know what I'm doing here. Played in the league for 15 years. I played at Ohio State. Like, my ideas are my ideas. But I think you kind of have to be a politician a little bit now to even get
Yeah.
hired, because these owners like don't want to deal with it because I can't go
Well,
broke no matter
well,
what.
it's funny when Harbaugh took the Chargers job. Some people saw it as a risk, but I know Dean Spanos and I know their history because we grew up with it on the West Coast. He was never a meddling guy. He had a reputation. I thought it was earned that he was cheap. A lot of first round holdouts. But once he moved into SoFi and he pays $1 rent a year and Stan Kroenke
I know.
is footing the bill, they're rolling in cash and he's not cheap and they're paying for players and they're paying Herbert and they paid Harbaugh. That job, I was thinking the other day, the three best job openings I could think of in the last 10 years. LaFleur to Green Bay was a great job. Aaron in his prime. I would say Mike McCarthy, Dak was in his prime or close to it. That's a pretty good job. And then Harbaugh to Herbert and Rashawn Slater, the left tackle, is a pretty good job. Most of these jobs are awful. I don't think, because of Woody Johnson and because of a lot of reasons in Chicago, I think those are the two best jobs. One for personnel, the Jets, and the other just because of the quarterback. But are you sure Vrabel should take either one of these jobs?
No, no, absolutely not. I mean, the Jets have proven to go to a place where coaches die, and because their owner does I mean, his kids like that's real. Like he's given up, and part of that article, which I just assumed he was going back overseas. Like he's not going. Donald picked someone else. So Woody's staying. So every day when you go to the office, Woody's there. In Chicago, you have to answer to Kevin Warren. Like that's not like that's a fact right now. Like that's I mean that is what is happening. I also think Jim, the version of Jim that we saw with San Francisco, where I think most people describe him being the crazy, he's completely
Yeah.
different now. When you watch some
Yeah.
of these post game, after wins and he's pointing at John Spanos, he feels much lighter. I feel like much, and I know he's driven and the chip on his shoulder to win, but he feels less trying to take on the world than I think he was a decade ago. And who knows? Maybe that's with money. Maybe that's with
I
winning the
think it's the
national
natty.
championship. Maybe that's just being around, and maybe being around college kids and his dad. I think the last six, it's a little different atmosphere than the NFL. Really seeing guys, because most of his players aren't going to the league, right? They're going to be citizens in society. And I bet that it just gives you a little life perspective. He feels like a different human being. Where, Vrabel, I'd want Vrabel as my coach, but I just wonder if some of these owners, like, I don't know if he's going to listen to me. These guys want, because money now is no longer, the Jets can win 4 games for the next 10 years and Woody's printing cash. So, and he's giving you his opinions. Like, let's face it, Woody's got some vibes of Dan Snyder in Washington. It's a little different, but there are some similarities. Like, who would want to do
Yeah.
that?
If I was Mike Vrabel's agent, I'm not, because if you go and look 1 year from now, Joe Burrow could need a new coach. I mean, just think about it. Like Dak could need a new coach. I mean, Jalen Hurts and Howie Roseman can need a new coach. Like we're a year, and I keep saying this, John. Andy Reid's health. If Andy Reid won a third straight, I'm not sure. I don't know. Also,
I think he's looking slim
he
right now, Colin. I saw a side shot. He looks good.
also
I don't know. I think he's in this for
what
the
if
long
Sean
haul.
McDermott gets bounced early? That job could. I think next year you have potentially 3 or 4 really interesting jobs. I'm just saying, if I'm Mike Vrabel, I'm not sure I want these jobs.
I don't necessarily subscribe to this line of thinking, but it does feel like a lot of people, you get that 1 year window where you either pounce, right? Mike McCarthy did that, like fired coaches in Green Bay. People would come over and he kind of got the buzz going, or you kind of go into the media and keep your name out there. Vrabel's not a big pump his chest out on TV. He's working for the Browns. It's not really his style. But I think most people would say you start going a couple years away, you somewhat get lost in the shuffle if you're not front and center. Because every year there's a couple new young offensive coaches. I don't necessarily think that way, but clearly some of these owners and people, the agents around the league think that's kind of risky. I think some coaches get worried about that. All of a sudden, you get lost out of the shuffle. And with him, he's always got the connection. If anything goes weird with Ryan Day, I'm sure he'd be their number one call. And luckily for college athletics, that pays $100 million. So he's always got that on the back burner. But I think you got to be careful with that because all of a sudden you could look in a couple years and a couple cycles and maybe he's kind of
Yeah.
out of the loop.